Hello, this is TeriLeigh, and this is day 2 of the 3-day free chakra intensive. Today, we're going to cover your chakras and your mind. First, I want to talk a little bit about me as a teacher and as a chakra master. I have a master's degree in education, a bachelor's in literature and creative writing. I'm a certified yoga instructor and teacher trainer, a Reiki master, initiated shaman elder, a published author, and a total linguistics nerd and neuroscience geek. I've been through a lot in my life. I've been through depression, anxiety, being hit by a truck, digestive issues, eating disorder, chronic insomnia, divorce, homelessness, unemployment, bankruptcy, scoliosis, and I've done it all. I've worked with doctors, chiropractors, therapists, body workers, fitness trainers, nutritionists, energy healers, holistic health counselors, meditation instructors, life coaches, shamans, blah, 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 blah. What I can tell you is that I have a lot of experience with a lot of different things. And my job is to help you turn the uglies upside down to find the pretties. I hold your hand and I ask just the right questions, and I get to the root of things from an energetic, spiritual, physical, biological, scientific perspective. I feel the good stuffs coming out of the hard stuffs, and I help you find the wisdom within. So today, I want to review what we did yesterday in the first part of this program, the chakras in your body. What are the chakras? From my perspective, the chakra system is the energetic and neurological wiring system of all of your internal life experiences. That's all the information that your body has taken in since the time it was born. All of your cumulative memories, all the things you have experienced in your mind and your thoughts and your perceptions and your feelings and your emotions in your entire life, as well as the collective ancestral histories of every ancestor that came together to produce you, going way, way, way back in time. All of that is collectively joined in your chakra system. As a result, here's what your chakras are in your body. The chakra system is embedded into the human body central nervous system. Each chakra purpose is symbolized in the functions of its related body parts. So where your chakra is located helps determine what that chakra is all about and what it does. The chakra bandha is how you exercise that chakra to turn it up and turn it down based on what you need in life. And the way to exercise it is to put your skeletal system and your muscular system that engages that chakra into the right place and engage them. So it's this body position and movement that help balance your chakras. I call them bandhas, by calibrating and exercising them to address to your external circumstances of life. And when you do those actions, those bandha actions over and over and over and over and over again, you retrain your nervous system, you retrain your brain, you retrain your body, and you retrain your brain and your body to talk to each other. And that brings your chakras into better function. The chakra system, your central nervous system, your body parts, and how to exercise them is what we went over in the first part. Now, today, I'm going to talk about an example of that. Here is my husband Hobbit's hand, and you see that there's a Band-Aid there. When I first met him, he had chronic psoriasis on the palms of his hands. That psoriasis was both painful and itchy, and it's in his hand. So his hand is connected to the heart chakra, and the heart chakra is all about giving and receiving, pumping out, pulling in, breathing out, breathing in. In his case, he was bleeding too much of giving. He was giving too much and not receiving enough back in his life prior to meeting me and in his job after he met me. These circumstances in his life led to this pain in his hand basically telling him, you're giving too much. The itchiness of it is indicative of his third eye chakra. Third eye chakra is connected to your 5 senses, and your skin is one of those 5 senses. And when your skin doesn't like something that it's feeling or sensing and saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing this, it gets itchy or painful. In his case, it got both. His body was telling him, you're giving too much and your circumstances aren't right for you. You need to make a lifestyle change. At the same time, there's also this symbolic episode of it, is that it's symbolic of that concept of stigmata. Stigmata being a sign of sacrificing yourself. Again, a heart chakra. He was constantly putting the needs of others before himself, and it was showing up in the palms of his hands. After he met me, he cleaned up his personal life with situations relating to his ex-wife and his kids, and that found more clarity. And then he got a new job that didn't require him to give so much, and he got better boundaries in terms of his relationships and his jobs, and that cleared it up. He also slightly changed his diet, started exercising more, started taking care of himself more. So serving himself before serving others, receiving before giving. And that all cleared up the stigmata and the issues in his hands. So that's how your chakras work within your body. When your body has issues, it's talking to you through your chakras. If you have body talks to you, then you need to listen to those talks and address that with lifestyle changes. Symptoms of blocked chakras in your mind. So today we're moving on up to the mind. And in the mind, when your chakras are blocked or not functioning at their best, what that means is you're having over syndromes in your head, all those thinkings in your head, obviously overthinking. The wires are crossed, communication is not getting around properly in your brain. And that turns into all over foggy. You can't retrieve the thoughts. You can't get to where you want to go. You're unclear on things. You're confused. That leads to over worrying and over analyzing and trying to double think and think twice and second guess yourself. And that also leads to being distracted. Oh, what about this? What about that? There's just too much going on in your head when your chakras are overwhelmed. And then that can lead to depression and anxiety. Overall, it's just a feeling of complete unbalance inside your mind. What are the over syndromes that you deal with in your mind? Perhaps that's a journal you want to write about for a while. If you have these issues, whether it's those body talks talking to you, or you've got that over stuff going on in your head, what those thoughts are, what you're dealing with, what you're worrying about, that can all indicate which chakra you're dealing with. So I highly recommend, if you haven't already, book a free chakra reading with me, and I can help you decode those brain foggy thoughts and help you determine which chakra needs balancing and how to balance that. So what is it that actually blocks your chakras in your mind? Well, the first thing that happens is child development wounds. Your chakras develop at the same stages as you do as a child. And so inner child patterning based on how you were raised as a kid manifests into patterns and habits that reproduce themselves over and over and over again. In some cases, they serve you, but in other cases, as you grow and evolve, those old patterns from childhood may not work so well for you. And then there's the unconscious language choices. Things that you are constantly saying and you don't even know you're saying them because they just come out of your mouth. And those vibrations, your body and your chakras are listening to, and you could be affirming things that you don't mean to affirm. And that turns into internal self-talk, that beating yourself up inside your head and getting angry with yourself and lack of confidence and all that kind of stuff can manifest in your mind as well. So these things can all block or impinge on your chakra function. How do you fix that? How do you align that? In your mind, inner child work, which is very similar to what you do with your therapists. You reframe the traumas of your childhood. You think about them in a different perspective, and you change those wounds into your gifts. You rewire those memories, looking at them from a different perspective, changing your perception of what happened as a child with a new perspective of who you are as an adult. All that inner child work can help reframe your chakras and rewire how they work. Then you can also change your language and your linguistics. Word choice, sounds that you use coming out of your voice, things that you're thinking inside your head, you rephrase them to be more positive in thoughts and more aligned with what you're actually trying to manifest. You repeat those new phrases so that you're getting to a new awareness, a new affirmation, and that will change how you function in your chakras. We're going to go over that in a lot more detail. First, I want to give you an example of an affirmation oops, a way that we can unconsciously be affirming what we don't want. Here's Maya Angelou. She's very clear in saying, people will forget what you did, people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that's the key in terms of chakra language and linguistics. If you find an affirmation that makes you feel something, that feeling is what changes the energy within your system. So here's an example. I had a client who came to me and she said, I am a strong, independent woman. And she was complaining to me that she's been so strong and so independent that she didn't have really close, intimate relationships in her life. And she was tired of being so masculine, strong, and so independent that she was ready to embrace more of the power of the feminine and recognizing that feminine is just as powerful as masculine, just in very different ways. So she said, I'm a strong, independent woman. How can I be more feminine? And I suggested she change her language because strong is a masculine word and independent is implying I don't need anybody. So I suggested keeping the same concept, but changing your language. I said, why don't you switch to, I am a phenomenal woman? And the F, N, M, L, W, M, N sounds within this phrase really amplify the feminine energy, but it makes it powerful, phenomenal. Without losing the strength, it just switched that strength from masculine to feminine, and it gave that openness to receptivity of relationship. Within 2 weeks of changing this thought pattern inside her head, she told me that she started having awareness of new relationships in her life forming and herself turning to be more feminine in her energy. It's very powerful when you change your language. The law of attraction talks about this, that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, but it's very precise. Your brain and your body manifest exactly what you're thinking and what you're feeling. So if what you're saying doesn't match what you're feeling, your body's going to go with what you feel. So in order to focus on, you must create. To focus on something, you must create it, but that focus must be both mental and emotional and physical to make it actually manifest. So you could be oopsing your affirmations by what you're saying or by the feeling that it's evoking. And the law of the universe is that internal feels, the things you actually feel vibrating inside you, those create the external reals. So if you want to manifest something, you have to feel it and match the words that you're feeling, the words you're saying to the words you're feeling. And eventually that will become a magnet to what you want in the outside world. So the true healing and chakra balance happens when you focus on those internal feels and you precisely choose your language. Be very, very precise and clear in your language. So have you used some affirmations that didn't quite serve you? Or do you have a childhood wound or internal self-talk that might be running loops in your brain that you're unconsciously manifesting something you don't want? We'll go into now the development of the chakras. Your brain is this complex mass of nerve tissue that is the home of intelligence, interpreter, and the interpreter of your senses, initiator of your body movement, and controller of the behavior in your body. Your brain manages everything. It's the command center. It manages the collective history, the memory, the genetics, and all the qualities of being human. Every single impulse, stimuli you've ever taken in, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing, goes into this massive database in your brain, which then determines how you're going to function. How does that work? Well, in your brain and your chakras, when your brain gets foggy, when it gets too confused, when it gets overwhelmed, your chakras get out of balance with all those over syndromes we talked about earlier, and they get completely unmanageable. And as empaths and HSPs, we have a higher tendency for that kind of brain fog because we are introverts. Now, I define introverts differently. I think of introverts as people whose brains work differently. And because our brains work differently, we need alone time. Many people say that introverts are people who need alone time, extroverts are people who need social time. Well, I think it goes a layer beyond that into what goes on in our brains. There's clinical studies out there that say that introverts, empaths, and HSPs, our brains work in more loop-de-loops and symbolics and metaphorics and all kinds of creative thoughts, where extroverts, their brains work very linearly, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, just from here to there. And because we're going in those loop-to-loops, it's much more common for us to get overwhelmed. We need the quiet alone time to process and analyze and organize all that stimuli input that we're taking in. It's almost like extroverts have more of a filter and less stuff actually comes in, whereas us introverts, HSPs, and empaths, more stuff comes in, so it's easier to get more jumbled. And so what does that mean? Well, the reticular activating system. This is a part of your brain located by the brainstem that is literally your brain's filter, the RAS. It tells your brain and your nerves what is important to pay attention to and what you need to follow. For example, when a woman becomes pregnant, all of a sudden she's thinking pregnancy, pregnancy's on the brain. She's going to see a zillion other things out in the world about pregnancy. There's always stuff out in the world about pregnancy. Pregnant people on TV, pregnant people in the grocery store, all kinds of symbols and metaphors about pregnancy. But until a woman gets pregnant and she's aware of it and she brings that thought forward into her mind, she's not paying attention. As soon as she gets pregnant, she starts paying attention and the RAS says, oh, I need to take that filter off and let you pay attention to those things. And I'll start triggering them for you. Another example is angel numbers. If you're one of those people who loves to see the number 1111 or 444, you love it so much that every time you see it, you get a little excitement. Well, that excitement is an internal feel that then creates the external real. When you get that excitement about seeing it, your RAS says, oh, you want to see that? Okay, I'll show it to you every time it shows up. It's always out there. It's just that you're noticing it. Same thing with like cars. I played a game with my nephew Tyler once called Score. And every time I'd see a yellow car, score, got it. The first week I was playing it, I got a few cars every time. But after several weeks of playing it, I got more and more yellow cars. The yellow cars were always there. It's just that that RAS took the filter off. I have a theory that introverts, HSPs, and empaths have less filters on our RAS, and it takes us longer to process through all that stuff. So what's important to the RAS? How does the RAS determine what it filters and what it doesn't? Number one is the behavior patterns. We discussed this in part one, the ways your body manifests and moves, and the way you're doing things on a constant basis and how that triggers your chakras. Your RAS says, oh, if you're moving your body this way and that's connected to that chakra, that's what you want, so I'll make that important. Another thing that's important to your RAS is how you developed as a child. The development stages and the things that were plugged into you in your childhood and how you were raised, your RAS says that stuff is more important because that was part of your development and what's significant in your life. Another way that the RAS filters things out is by your language habits. What you say, okay, you said that, you must mean it, I'm going to give it to you. And the last way, which we'll go over in our part 3, is the ancestral coding. What's happened in your genetics and your ancestry and how that has been passed through in your DNA. The RAS finds that stuff important too. All of these are related to your chakras. And when you need to balance your chakras, you're also retraining your RAS. So when your RAS gets conflicting information, like your body's doing this and your mind is saying the opposite, it gets confused because it's got opposite things to compute. And then that's when your chakras get overwhelmed. And that's when you get jumbled and crumbled and confused and overbalanced, and all those over syndromes happen. So you want to clarify the messages going into your brain and your body and be very clear about what's important, and that will balance your chakras and make your nervous system function a lot better. If you want to understand your RAS and your childhood development and what you may have done in your patterns, your language habits, or your childhood to develop into your current patterns and habits, a good chakra reading can give you that. sign up on my website, TeriLeigh.com. So what are you learning so far? Is this stuff interesting for you? A lot of you are nodding. Now we're going to get into chakra by chakra. How do you train your brain and your chakras in your mind based on how you developed as a child? This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is how the child develops over the stages of time between conception till adulthood, like age 26 or so. Chakra patterns and wounds that happen during those different stages of your childhood development can stunt or wound how your chakra functions in the long term. So say your parents got divorced when you were 7. Well, 7 is when your heart chakra is developing, so that's going to impact how your heart chakra relates to other people. As an example, whatever happens during the different stages of your childhood, if you had significant situations or traumas occur, those can impact how your chakras function throughout your adulthood. So we look to your childhood development to learn your chakra patterns, your chakra tendencies, and figure out what those chronic imbalances are. And then you can do the inner child work and the chakra work and the body work, somatic body work, to change those imbalances. So we'll start with the root chakra. The root chakra, when does it develop? In infancy. From the time you're conceived until you're crawling. The whole time that your body is dependent on someone else to have your basic needs met. You can't feed yourself. You can't swaddle yourself. You can't go get something you need. You're completely dependent on the support and the stability and the security of someone else. So your support comes from your infancy. If things happen during your infancy, that can trigger fear, anxiety, or worry. And a great example of this is I knew a woman once who was born during the Great Depression. Well, right there, food, water, shelter, not as easy to come by. Her infancy, it was harder for her to get fed because her mom was poor. Not only that, her mom, when she got pregnant, she was a teenager. She was 17. That 17-year-old was kicked out of the house during the Great Depression because mom and dad said, we can't feed another mouth. Go do it yourself. So a 17-year-old who's not fully developed herself has to raise a baby by herself. She got a job at the tavern, got an apartment upstairs in the tavern, and she'd go to work and leave that baby who was born during the Great Depression alone to cry for 6 hours at a time. So that baby didn't get its needs met, was crying incessantly without getting its needs met. So it developed into chronic patterns of fear, anxiety, and worry. That's just one specific example. We get to the sacral chakra, and that's when you're a toddler. So the time you're crawling and learning to walk. It's when you're being potty trained. And the purpose of the sacral chakra is about holding on and letting go. It's about flow and control. And in that time of your life, you're learning, oh, I can go play, I can go have fun. And your parents are constantly trying to control to make sure you're still safe. If your parents were too strict, that could lead you to being a workaholic, which is an impingement on the sacral chakra. If your parents were too loose and not strict enough, that could lead you to being unreliable and not having any structure in your life. That's the balance of the sacral chakra. That's where we get into anal retentiveness. Freud coined that term because during this stage of the child development, the sacral development, when kids are being potty trained, if they're potty trained on a very rigid schedule and a rigid structure, their bodies are trained that everything must be in structure and order. And that turns into too much control in life. Or the opposite, not enough control in life. Third chakra, your core chakra. This develops in preschool when kids start to have really keen attitudes. They get more language and they start to say no, and they start to say, I like, I want, and I don't like, and I don't want. They go through those phases, like a phase of, I only eat things that are purple, and a phase of, I like that fuzzy blanket, and then the next week they can't stand the fuzzy blanket. This is the time in life when children are developing their identity, their independence, and they're finding ways to say, this is how I'm different and how I'm unique. And so this manifests into how they relate to themselves and their independence and their power and their strength. So if anything happens during this stage, like age 3, 4, 5, or they're too restricted and told no way too many times, that being told you're not good enough, you're a bad child, that can impact the core chakra development. Then we get to grade school, your heart chakra. The heart chakra develops in grades 1st through 4th or 5th grade. This is the time when kids are friends with everybody in their class. They give everybody in their class a Valentine's Day card. They're starting to be in Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and clubs and sports. This is when they start to relate to other people. Oh, you're my friend. You're my friend. And they're working more in team attitudes. And it's about that giving and relating. I give to you and you give back to me. They learn to share. Those kinds of things happen during the heart chakra. So if some sort of wounding happens in this stage of life, such as bullying or a parent divorce or a significant loss in their lives, that's going to impact the heart chakra development. The next stage is middle school. This is 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. This is when children really start to fine-tune their vocal skills. They start playing music. They start writing more complex stories. They're communicating with each other. This is also when the he said, she said stories and the cliques and the fighting back and forth and the truth and the lies start to happen. And so if at this stage of life, if they're encountering lots of big lies, or if they're being overly censored, or if they're engaging people who overly share, all those things are going to manifest into the throat chakra and their understanding of truth versus untruth. Then we get to those teenagers. Teenagers are know-it-alls, and not from the practical sense, but from the intuitive sense, because they're developing their third eye. And the third eye is their merging of all 5 senses. They're seeing things, they're smelling things, they're hearing things, and they're making intuitive awareness assessments based on all this input coming in, because their face and their brain is developing in much more fine-tuned ways. This is where they learn to trust their own intuition. They trust their own gut. They're becoming more aware. This is when teenagers learn to drive. And one of the key skills in driving is intuition. Is that car going to go that way or this way? Well, their intuition is gauging, how that car that they've been following has been behaving and patterning. Whether or not they turn on their signals, they can see that maybe they're going to turn because they're leaning in that direction to turn or whatever. So much happens. Like, we've all driven from here to there without paying attention to where we're going, because we rely on that intuition of our third eye senses, taking in all the observations of the world and processing it without having to be conscious about it. That's what happens at teenage stage. And if you're not given those possibilities to develop that sense of perception, that can impact your intuition and how you relate to your third eye. Finally, we get to the crown chakra. The crown chakra develops between ages 18 and about 26. And that's when the frontal lobe, the higher cognitive thinking, happens in the brain, where people can start to make those bigger decisions about what you want to do in your life and how does this impact your future long term, and all those cognitive skills and analytical, deeper thinking thoughts. It's about spirituality, thinking bigger, thinking smaller, thinking what happens if this happens. That meaning of life and existential awareness, and being able to analyze, this is how I feel about it, this is what I know about it, connecting your brain to your gut. I know it in my gut, I feel it in my heart, this is what I think in my head. How do those 3 all work together? That's what's happening in the crown chakra. If you have a significant wounding or trauma or situation during this development, it's going to impact your ability to make those bigger overall life decisions. So how do you train your brain if it's been, and your chakras, if they've been impeded by things that happened over your childhood development? Well, that's why we go to therapy. That's why therapists are always asking, well, what happened in your childhood? And what they want to do is they want to retrain your brain. So here are a number of methods that we have used in therapy: EMDR, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing. Where your eyes go triggers different parts of your brain to activate. And so if you use your eyes in different places while you're thinking about different things, you're going to send different synapses and create different patterns and different wiring within your brain. NLP is neuro-linguistic processing. It's kind of like EMDR, but it's using your tongue, because you're connecting your brain to the words that you're spilling off your mouth and the tongue and the way that moves around, but also the phrasing and the vibration of those words. I do a lot of this in my work with my clients as I get them, because I'm such a linguist and a language freak. I rephrase your affirmations in ways that rewire your brain to think differently, to perceive differently, to turn your RAS to filter things differently. Another way that we've used in therapies is hypnosis. And that's focused concentration. You get so focused on concentrating on this thing that the peripheral awareness diminishes. And then because you're in that one-track mind, your brain is more susceptible to being told, go this way, change to this patterning. So hypnosis is quite an effective method. I have created a method I call the Mosey method. With all my clients, I work them through the Mosey method of connecting a body action with a mindful intention that's very precise and clear with focused breath work. And that's the whole concept of, you're going to think a thought and make it feel physically in your body. And that thinking and that feeling is that messaging between your brain and your body that rewires your chakras and your RAS. And the breathing pushes that through your whole system and makes it habit and pattern. So you're still learning some good stuff. Maybe take a moment now to pause the recording and write down some of the ahas. Sometimes people get so caught up in listening to me that they forget to take notes. So here's your chance to take notes, and then you can push play again when you're ready. And again, that subtle suggestion that you might want to get a chakra reading with me, so that I could show you this happened in your childhood. That's this chakra. That's why you're having these patterns and behaviors in your life now. And here's what we can do to balance that and change that and rewire that. So how do you do that? How do you integrate all these things? First thing is to clear that brain fog. And the best way to clear your brain fog and to still all that overactivity because your RAS is way too open is breathing. Oxygen is spacious, it's cleansing, it's electric, and it's energetic. And it will change the wiring of your brain instantly. And once it changes your brain, it's going to go right through your nerves faster than you can snap your fingers. So you want to breathe and learn how to breathe effectively. So that's not just take a deep breath when you need it. It's training your brain and your body to breathe in a different way as your normal breath. Make your breath more effective for your chakras and your nervous system. Another way to unclog those chakras is to clarify and simplify and shorten the messages you're using in your words and your phrases. So if you're doing affirmation practice, if your affirmations are too long and complex, you're just overwhelming your reticulated activation system even more. If you make them very short and simple, I am a phenomenal woman. That's it. Your brain will process that a lot more easily than if they're complex and long. Next thing is to adjust your focus, change your perception, rephrase things. Do that by keeping your language positive. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Use the words that exactly precisely say what you're trying to achieve. Instead of saying, I'm letting go of anger. Sure, you are letting go of anger. That's a true statement. But you're activating the word anger. And so by saying the word anger, your brain and your body hear anger, and then you have to let it go, and that's confusing to your RAS. Wait, I'm letting go, but there's anger. I'm letting go, but there's anger. So a better way to say that phrase is just to get the anger out of it altogether and say, I'm peaceful. It's a very different energy, isn't it? And then you're not actually having to do anything. You're just being. Another way to look at it is, I don't want to be alone. Well, if you keep saying what you don't want, you're saying don't, and you're saying this thing. And it's all negative phrasing. But if you say, I am supported in community, You're actually saying what you mean and meaning what you say, and then affirming that for yourself. So instead of saying what you don't want, say what you do want. Be more direct, be more clear. This is one of my favorite ones that I was actually guilty of using a lot in yoga class when I taught. Exhale tension, inhale peace. Well, you're still feeling tension if you're hearing the word tension. So why not say, exhale, relax. Inhale, peace. Exhale, relax. Inhale, peace. And then you're just doubling your power of peace. And the big adage, be present. One of the best ways to change your brain, your body, and your mind and your nervous system is to be in the here and now. Depression is about living in the past with regrets. Anxiety is about living in the future with your worries. But if you live in the present moment, what you have right here, right now, that's contentment. I got this. This is what I'm dealing with. Direct, it's clear, it's precise. So phrase your intentions in the present moment. I am, and emphasize how they are growing, evolving, and changing. My client knew she was a phenomenal woman, but she emphasized it as I'm becoming even more phenomenal by saying it. I am phenomenal. I am phenomenal right now. You say it many, 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 many times, and you really do start to feel it. Because you feel it, you make it real it. I'm going to show you a picture. And take note of how you feel when you see this picture. What in energetic emotion, physical sensation do you feel when you see this picture? Every time I see the picture, hey, it's the same shirt. Every time I see this picture, I remember that moment, that little giggly moment of looking across the table at my nephew and asking him, can you touch your tongue to your nose? And it gives me that little bubbly happy. And that reminds me of right now, I have that giggly, bubbly happy in me. So I create that feeling and I link an affirmation to it. I am bubbly happy. If I think about touching my tongue to my nose, or I actually do it, and I think I am bubbly happy, I can cause that change because I'm feeling it, I'm evoking it, I'm thinking it, I'm being it in this moment. That causes change. And then you repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. What would happen if every day, 15 times a day, you touched your tongue to your nose, if you can do that, and you thought to yourself, I am bubbly happy? You'd be evoking happiness 15 times a day. I just got snot all on my lips. 15 times a day, you're triggering that happiness. Eventually, it's going to become a tumble, and it all becomes more common. So your chakra affirmation, I suggest you pick a chakra, any one of the 7 chakras, maybe the one that had the most wounding in your childhood. You create a very simple affirmation around that chakra. If your parents divorced when you were 7, think, I am loved, because I guarantee both your parents loved you, even though they are divorcing, and probably they were more concerned about you then than ever. I am loved. I am loved. I am loved. I am loved. And you say that affirmation over and over and over again as you feel something in your memory banks, in your DNA, in your emotions, in your body. I am loved. And you remember what it's like to be held by your favorite grandma. I am loved. And you remember that hug or your great aunt kissing you twice on your cheeks. And repeat it over and over and over again in your day like a mantra, like a prayer. Pick that chakra, say that affirmation, feel it inside you, and repeat it over and over and over again. And see what happens after a day, 2 days, a week, 2 weeks. And if you don't know how to do that for yourself and you want me to help you come up with that affirmation, book your chakra reading and I'll walk you through it. Here's what we learned today. Your brain and your chakras function based on your thoughts, actions, conditioning, and genetics. Your brain's RAS, the reticular activating system, is a filter in your brain that makes you pay attention to what you have deemed in your life is important. What is important is based on the habits in your behavior that you have perpetuated, the things you were told and taught and developed in your childhood, the language you use in your everyday life and inside your mind, your internal self-talk, and the genetics and ancestral coding. So being mindful in what you think and how you speak is one way to train your RAS, to train your brain filter to help you pay attention to things and shift your chakras perceptions. Repeating those short, simple, positive affirmations will rewire your chakras and change that patterning from your childhood. If you really want to dive deep and this has gotten your trigger really tripped and you're excited about this chakra stuff, I promise you, you can't just change your chakra with one little affirmation in one little day. It's a systematic practice over time program that works best. In January, I start a program called the Chakra Immersion. It's a group program. We will meet the third and fourth Thursdays of every month on Zoom, where I will teach you the chakras. I'll teach you the bandhas, the physical exercises you can do to evoke and exercise the physical chakra itself. I'll help you determine the best affirmations and the childhood woundings and traumas that may have impacted your chakras and how to rewire those with brain training exercises. We'll do one chakra a month with an introduction and a closing over 9 months. And we'll do that as a group of 25 people or less. Go to my website, TeriLeigh.com, to register. And you can do that work privately with me, and I limit that to 12 clients at a time. So you can do sacred mentorship privately, 10 sessions in 12 months. In that case, you would set your own schedule and you'd set your own payment plan. And then at 2 sessions, I ask you, is this working for you? And I decide, is this working for me? And if it's not, I give you your money back, we walk away. But if it is working, we continue and you will change your life. The hybrid program I call Mastermind. I limit that to 12 people. And that's January through September, once a month, where you do the third and fourth Thursdays at 7 p.m. We'll meet as a group. And then once a month, you get your one-on-one session with me. We'll dive into each of your chakras individually. Then the group program is limited to 25, and that's January through September, third and fourth Thursdays at 4 p.m. And that's the group program. Starting in March, once I've got some of those lessons going with the groups and so forth, by March, I plan to have the whole program up online where you can start doing it by yourself. And that's drip fed. So you'll do 1 month at a time. You'll have a whole year access to the whole program, but you'll do 1 month at a time for 9 months. If you're interested in any of these or you don't know which one you should sign up for, the best thing to do is sign up for a private chakra reading with me, and I'll talk you through these options more specifically and help you decide what's best for you.